Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I'm Mohammad Riaz Khan with a new discussion on nature, nurture, and human diversity. In this discussion, we will be having three lectures. The first lecture will be discussing the initials of this a very long debate on nature versus nurture. And then we will be discussing that why human race is so diverse because of this nature versus nurture interplay and interaction. So the learning outcomes of this whole debate will be we shall learn about what is gene, genome, and genetics. Then we will be discussing the chromosome, inheritance, and how gene works. And then we'll be trying to comprehend this nature versus nurture debate with the help of trend studies. Then we turn again to the molecular genetics versus epigenetics, are also called the psychogenetics. Uh, then we will be having an evolutionary psychology perspective of the natural selection and adoption phenomena. And after that, we will be trying to illustrate the influence of parenting, peers, and cultures on ourselves, and then understand a holistic biopsychosocial perspective of nature versus nurture debate. So let's start with the first thing, the basic terms to learn. The very first one is behavior genetics or genetic. Uh, genet the study of relative power and limits of genetics and environmental influence on behaviors of those genetics. Those what we call psychogenetics, epigenetics, are behavior genetics. But what actually gene is, we will later on turn to that as well. But in the start, we are defining the psychogenetic or the behavior genetics or epigenetics, जो कि जीन्स के अपने ऊपर अपने आप को जो वो टाइड अप करते हैं इन्फ्लुएंस के साथ जो उनके ऊपर हो रहा होता है. So the term is heredity then comes कि the genetic transfer of characteristic from parents to offsprings. हमारे अंदर के जो genetic genes होते हैं and it has been transferred through chromosome exchange. chromosomes के हवाले से जब हम discussion करेंगे we will learn there as well. उसके जरिए हमें जो characteristic अपने biological parents से मिलते हैं, that is what we call heredity in terms of genetics. And environment is every non-genetic influence from parental nurturing to the people and the things around us. Yeah. And then we comes what chromosomes is and what actually gene is. Thread-like structure made of DNA molecules that contains the genes. Thread-like structure made of DNA. DNA was discovered in 1953, and that is a deoxyribonucleic acid which contains genes. And a human genome is contained approximately 20,000 to 25,000 genes. We'll be discussing the human genome later on as well. What is this DNA thing? DNA is a complex molecule contain the genetic information that makes up the chromosome. So it's actually the molecule. उसके अंदर उसके biochemistry में हम ज़्यादा detail में नहीं जाते. Where there are so 4 bases and their combination turns out to be in different characteristic and genes. Genome is the complete instruction for making an organism consisting of all the genetic material in that organism chromosomes. So genome is actually the total number of genes and non-gene material which make the heredity material or the chromosome thing in an organism. So that is called genome. So gene, that what we call our code of life. What it is usually, there is a DNA and chromosome is made of DNA, and on DNA we have this gene thing. But what genes actually? So biochemically saying, it's a unit, it's a biochemical unit of heredity, the makeup chromosome and the thread coils of DNA. ये वो बायोकेमिकल यूनिट्स होते हैं जो कि हेरेडिटी हेरेडिटी ट्रांसफर में काम आते हैं और इसके जरिए हमारी जो सारी जो कोड है, कोड ऑफ लाइफ है, वो इसी के अंदर पनहा होती है. इट इज कवर्ड इनसाइड द जीन. When genes are expressed, they provide the code for creating proteins, which forms the body building blocks. जीन से प्रोटीन्स बनते हैं, प्रोटीन से फिर टिश्यू का चक्कर चलता है, and then the whole body is made of those things. So gene is the biochemical unit of heredity material, which make the chromosomes, and then in turn that chromosomes contain the DNA structure. Chromosomes and inheritance. Chromosome, actually this word means, chromo means color, somo means body. So it's a colorful body. When they were observing it, so they came to know that there are so many colors around that. So that's why its name was, it was named as chromosome. What it has to do with the inheritance. The human genome is a shared genetic profile that distinguishes humans from other species. As we have said that, so human genome is a shared genetic profile that distinguishes human from other species. As we have said, the genome of any organism is its genetic, is heredity material which it got from its biological parents and then transfer on to its biological offsprings. And it contains the whole code of his, her life, shape, protein, and all those stuff. As an individual level, it consists all the genetic material in organization and organism chromosome. For example, human beings have 46 chromosomes in 23 matched sets, pairs. Each chromosome has the same gene location. There are estimated 20,000 to 25,000 human protein coding genes. These protein coding genes are then producing the proteins and then the tissue and then the whole body. The XY chromosomes are not a matched set in males while who are missing some genes on the Y chromosome. Each biological parent, in every case in human as well, donates half her set of chromosome to her offspring. So half come from the biological parent, male parent, and half come from the biological female parent. And each person receives half a set of chromosome from each biological parent, as a parent we have discussed earlier. So a little bit about the human genome, which is almost contained of 20,000 to 25,000 genes. Human genome are so nearly identical that we can speak of one universal human genome, which means that we all human share a very universal human genome, which is 99.99%. So that means that only 0.001% difference in genome make us different. And that's why we have 7.5 billion population and 7.5 billion personality, just because of that 0.001% difference in our genome to our near and dear ones. If that difference in genome is 0.5 to 4%, then we may become a chimpanzee, which is one of the nearest one to us, that is 0.5% to 4% difference in our genome with the chimpanzee. And we share 50% similar genome with a banana. So that's the mystery of the human genome, the gene in absolute term. So how gene work? Question arises कि gene काम किस तरह करते हैं? Genes are not blueprints, they are molecules. Those molecules has the ability to direct the assembly of proteins that build the body. Here comes the actual part of their functioning, कि ये जीन्स कोई प्ले मैप नहीं होते, ये कोई ब्लूप्रिंट की तरह की चीज नहीं होती, दे आर जस्ट मॉलिक्यूल्स, बट देयर ओनली फंक्शन इज दे डायरेक्ट the protein assembly, okay, where the protein have to assemble so that can turn to be protein and then cells and then bodies. This genetic protein assembly can be turned on and off by environment or by other genes, which we call receptive genes, suppressive genes as well. Recessive genes जिसमें और दो तरह के, जिसमें रिसेसिव जीन्स जो हैं वो अगर दो रिसेसिव जीन्स बन जाए जिसकी वजह से हमारे पास बहुत सारे जेनेटिक इश्यूज आते हैं, जेनेटिक डिजीजेस आते हैं. रिसेसिव जीन व्हेन दे express means they turn on, and when they are suppressed, so we can say that they are off and they cannot be seen in that person, but they are there, and they, when they are transferred to their biological offsprings, so there they can express themselves. Any trait we see as a result of complex interaction of many genes and countless other molecules, because all this trait, this personality trait, is not just mere because that we have that much genes or that many genes turn to be certain proteins, या इस तरह की बातें वो नहीं हैं. ये बहुत complex interaction के नतीजे में है, genes के साथ भी और other molecules के साथ भी और हमारे environment के साथ भी. आइडेंटिकल ट्विंस स्टडीज बहुत ज़्यादा डिस्कस होती हैं while we are discussing this nature versus nurture debate. So उसमें से भी ट्विंस में से भी दो तरह के ट्विन होते हैं. One is called identical twin and the second one is called fraternal twins. Identical twins is when the zygote is there, zygote is developed, and then that zygote is divided into separate zygote, which then comes to result in the same sex two offsprings. While fraternal twins are in such a way that there are two eggs meet with two sperms, and then we have two fraternal twins. They may be the same or of the opposite sex. So identical twins develop from a single fertilizer egg, fraternal twins from two different eggs. Identical twins do not always have the same number of copies of genes. Not all identical twins share the same placenta. So that is one of the difference as well. The placenta, which is actually the source of food and oxygen for the baby or for the impetus embryo. So that is not always shared by the identical twins. In many cases, they have different placenta. So then we can see how we can understand the effects and interaction of nature and nurture. Studies of identical twin versus fraternal twins, separated twins, and biological versus adaptive families allow researchers to tease apart the influence of heredity, what we call nature, and the environment. Separated identical twins, तो identical twins जो कि एक ही fertilized egg से बने होते हैं, zygote से बने होते हैं, when they are grown up in different home environment, they still have similar behaviors and attitudes. Similarly, adopted families maintain the same home environment while studying effect of genetic differences when they are adopted by others and in different environment. Now, the same environment while people are different ones. So behavioral genetics, twin and adoption studies. Studies of twin in adulthood show that identicals are more alike than fraternal twins in some ways. जो identical twins जो एक zygote से एक fertilized egg से के result में आए होते हैं, they have so many similarity with one another. For example, personality traits such as extroversion, social ability, and neuroticism or emotional stability. So identical twins have the similarity in terms of that compared to the fraternal twins. when there are differences as well. Behaviors and outcomes such as the rate of divorce, ability such as overall intelligence test scores. So they are basically that genes which is uh, taken from the both paternal side in the identical twins versus the fraternal twins. There are some similarity found in identical twins despite being raised in different homes. If the two identical twins are grown up in different homes, still they may have the similar personality, styles of thinking and relating, abilities of intelligent quotient or IQ scores, aptitude, interest, taste, specific fears or phobias or brain waves and heart rate as well. So they have the similarities with their twin, with their identical twin, although they may raised in different homes. So here comes the question that uh, studies are conducted with adopted children, biological versus adopted relative. Adopted children seem to be more similar to their genetic relative than their environmental or nurture relative, where they are being adopted by the adopted family, the adopted parent. सो अगर ऐसा है कि एडॉप्शन के बाद भी उनमें वो क्वालिटीज हैं, वो ट्रेड्स हैं जो उनके जेनेटिक रिलेटिव में हैं और उन जैसे नहीं हैं जो उनके एडॉप्टेड में हैं, सो क्वेश्चन अराइजेस कि पेरेंटिंग और नर्चर का क्या असर है इस पे, और डज द होम एनवायरनमेंट हैव एनी इम्पैक्ट? So that's the question which is having certain positive question that yes, parenting does matter because despite the strong impact of the genetics on personality, parenting has an influence on our religious belief, values, manner, attitude, political behavior, and our habits as well. Because as an evolutionary psychology perspective, जब हमारी personality build हो रही होती है तो हमारे जो social learning है वो हमारे इर्द गिर्द से हो रही है. If that time parents are with us, so they have an influence on our these traits and these beliefs as well. If this is the case that parenting has a matter as a impact on uh, the offsprings, then why are siblings different? Because in the same home, with the same parent, there are different siblings uh, with different traits. So then why is this so? Because that is that we have half of our parent, half of our genetic material from one parent, from our father, biological father, and one from our biological mother. And they also got it from their grandparents. So the case may be that, for example, in this first case, if we see that the grandparents of that female body having one genetic makeup or genome, the another one is the orange color is. So their parent will have a blue plus orange, while the father who is having pink plus uh, this green one, so the pink plus green one. Now they will interact, so they have four siblings. The four siblings have different genetic makeup. Like we can see that the sibling one has something from his mother, that is the blue side, and pink side from the father, while the second female having one from his uh, mother, which is the orange color, and then the green one from the parent. And then the next is the green and blue. And then the fourth one has all the four. So in this case, we have four different genomes in terms of genes and all those. So that's why siblings are different, that we have different genome. Siblings share only half of their genome with one another. Genetic differences become amplified as people react to them differently. Initially, it was not, the traits are not that much different, but when these little differences are reacted by others so differently, then the differences is amplified. And then environment change with each addition to a family. the elder one has a different personality. उसके बाद दूसरा जो आता है सबसे आखिर में आने वाला जो लाडला अक्सर होता है या फिर उस लाडपन की वजह से उसके और भी इश्यूज आ सकते हैं. Siblings are raised in slightly different families. The youngest child has more older siblings and has older parents. जो या ओल्डर वन आता है, जो द फर्स्ट चाइल्ड है, द फर्स्ट किड है, ही हैज अ डिफरिंग ग्रूमिंग. और जो सबसे लास्ट वन होता है वो उसके बहुत डिफरेंट होता है, क्योंकि जो ओल्डर वन होता है ही हैज अ यंग पेरेंट्स. सो उस वक्त जो उनको अटेंशन मिलती है, रिएक्शंस मिलते हैं, दैट इज डिफरेंट वन एज कंपेयर टू द यंगेस्ट child which has older siblings and older parents as well. So that was all for the today's discussion. The discussion will be going on in the 2 other lectures, and we will be discussing more about that what is temperament and heredity, what heritability is, and we will be discussing one of the most famous NASA twin case study which take almost 4 years to complete. Molecular genetics and epigenetics will also be discussed. Then we'll be discussing in detail that how genes are affected by our environment, or what is the matter concern in epigenetics. And then we will be turning to the evolutionary psychology perspective about the natural selection and adoption. And that will goes on to the uh, genetic legacy and our differences, male female differences in mating preferences, and so other differences. Then in the third lecture, we'll be discussing the brain development and the reaction, the trait development as well. Then we'll be discussing the parents and the peer influence, that we shall blame them for our own behaviors or traits, or to give them credits. Then the cultural influence will also be discussed. At the end, the individualism and collectivism, personality, culture values effect on our own behaviors will also be discussed. And that this will be ended till the psychosocial holistic overview of our grooming of the personality. Till then, Allah Hafiz.